Here's a question that should bother you. How does an organization with no army, no elected government, and no democratic mandate end up owning more land than most kings, and then get erased in existence in a single Friday morning? We're told the Middle Ages were ruled by monarchs in the church, that power flowed from thrones and altars. But there was a third force, one that operated in the space between both, one that financed wars, built infrastructure across 2 continents, pioneered banking systems we still use today, and then, on Friday, October 13th, 1307, was destroyed almost overnight. That organization was the Knights Templar. And the story of how they rose, why they were crushed, and what happened after is not just a medieval curiosity. It is a masterclass in how power actually works, and a pattern that has repeated itself across centuries, right up to today. To understand the Templars, you have to understand the world they were born into. It's the early 12th century. The First Crusade has just ended. Christian forces have captured Jerusalem in 1099. Pilgrims from across Europe are now making the dangerous journey to the Holy Land, and they're being robbed, attacked, killed on the roads. The Church is the dominant ideological force in Europe, but it cannot police roads thousands of miles away. Kings have armies, but not the reach, not the coordination. There is a vacuum. And into that vacuum stepped a small group of French knights in 1119, led by a man named Hugues de Payens. Their stated mission was simple: protect the pilgrims. Their actual trajectory would be anything but. Hugues de Payens and 8 companions approached King Baldwin II of Jerusalem with a proposal. "Give us a base," they said. "We will guard the roads." Baldwin gave them quarters in what was believed to be the ruins of Solomon's temple, and so they became the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, the Knights Templar. Poor was the operative word initially. The founding myth included 2 knights sharing a single horse, a symbol of humility. But poverty has a shelf life. In 1129, the Church officially endorsed the Templars at the Council of Troy. This was the turning point. With the blessing of Bernard of Clairvaux, the most influential churchman of the era, the Templars received a papal charter that gave them extraordinary privileges. They answered to no king, no bishop. Only the Pope himself held authority over them. That document was effectively a license to operate without oversight across all of Christendom. Here's where the story gets structurally fascinating. A pilgrim traveling to Jerusalem in the 1150s faces a practical problem. He cannot carry gold across Europe and the Mediterranean, too dangerous. So the Templars invented a solution: the letter of credit. Deposit your money at a Templar house in Paris, receive a document, redeem it for equivalent funds in Jerusalem. This was proto-banking, functionally a checking system centuries before modern banks existed. The wealth that flowed through this system was staggering. The Templars charged fees, accumulated donations, received land grants from grateful nobles, managed estates across France, England, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and the Holy Land. At their peak, they held properties in nearly every European country and operated what was effectively an international financial network. Kings borrowed from them. Philip IV of France, the man who would eventually destroy them, was himself deeply in debt to the order. And that debt, that is where the cause and effect chain of their destruction begins. By the early 1300s, the Crusades were effectively over. Jerusalem had fallen back to Muslim control in 1187. The Templars' original military justification had eroded. Their purpose was unclear. Their wealth was enormous, and Philip IV of France was essentially bankrupt. On the night of October 12, 1307, sealed orders were delivered to royal agents across France. At dawn on Friday the 13th, they were opened simultaneously. Every Templar in France was to be arrested immediately, their assets seized, their properties confiscated. Hundreds were captured in a single morning. What followed was a show trial lasting 7 years. Under torture, Templars confessed to heresy, idol worship, and sacrilege. Most later recanted, but the machinery of destruction was already turning. In 1312, Pope Clement V, himself politically dependent on Philip, formally dissolved the order at the Council of Vienne. The last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake in 1314 on an island in the Seine River in Paris. His final words, according to accounts, were a curse against both Philip and the Pope. Both were dead within a year. The Templars' assets were largely transferred to the Knights Hospitalier, a rival order, but the financial network they built didn't simply vanish. It fragmented and it evolved. Italian banking families stepped in to fill the void. The Lombards, the Medicis, the infrastructure of credit and lending the Templars pioneered migrated into private hands with even less accountability. Meanwhile, the legal and moral precedent Philip set was corrosive. He had demonstrated that even a papally protected institution could be destroyed by a sufficiently motivated sovereign who controlled the narrative. Power, it turned out, was not in charters. It was in who controlled the courts, the confessions, and the story. The pattern here is not ancient history. Consider this. Institutions that accumulate wealth and political independence, whether medieval orders, central banks, tech monopolies, or international financial bodies, consistently become targets once their protectors need resources or need them silenced. The dynamic of a debtor destroying his creditor is remarkably durable. Philip IV owed money to the Templars. He accused them of heresy and seized their assets. Across history, this script repeats with only the costume changing. Today, roughly 1% of global institutions control assets equivalent to the GDP of entire continents. The question the Templar story forces us to ask is this: what happens when the political will to dismantle them aligns with the financial incentive to seize them? Here's what this story actually teaches us. First, power without accountability is a target, not a protection. The Templars' exemption from oversight made them wealthy. It also made them uniquely vulnerable when the political winds shifted. Second, financial systems outlast the institutions that create them. The Templars were destroyed, but the letter of credit, the proto-bank, the concept of lending against collateral, these survived and scaled. Ideas are harder to burn than people. Third, the official charges are rarely the real reasons. Heresy, corruption, sacrilege, these were the stated reasons. Debt, envy, and political consolidation were the actual ones. When powerful institutions fall suddenly, always ask who benefits. Jacques de Molay died cursing the men who destroyed him. Both were dead within a year. Coincidence or consequence, history doesn't say. But here's the open question worth sitting with. If an organization this powerful, this globally networked, this legally protected could be erased in a single morning, what does that tell us about the institutions we assume are permanent today? The Templars didn't think it could happen to them either. If this kind of deep dive into hidden history is what you're here for, subscribe, because this is just the beginning of the thread. And drop in the comments, which institution today do you think is most vulnerable to a Friday the 13th moment? I read every single response.